Hello, fabulous fifth graders. Today we're going to be taking our understanding of multiplying fractions by whole numbers to apply it to multiplying fractions by fractions. And we're going to start off looking and thinking about them visually, which we have done with pretty much every other fraction concept. So we're just going to quickly kind of review what that looks like. So thinking about what a fraction is when we're thinking about a part and a whole. So when we're looking at a whole visually, we have been working with a template of a unit square, where in this model we have a 1 unit by 1 unit, and then we've kind of broken those wholes up into the fractional pieces that we're looking for. And we are going to use that same idea when we're thinking about fractions. So if we're thinking about finding the area of a square, we know area is the length times the width. In our unit square, it is a 1 by 1. But what if we wanted to look at a half by a half? What would that look like, taking that piece out of our unit? So we're taking our unit square and we are splitting it off into the dimensions that you're looking for. So in this case, we're taking our wholes and we're splitting them into half-size pieces. And then we want a half by 1/2. So I've only shaded in a half and a half. And so I end up with this little corner piece. So I'm thinking about a half by a half, or the area of the length times the width, to figure out that whole square colored amount. So a half times a half is equal to 1/4 of our whole square unit. Now, does that make any sense? That a half times a half would equal 1/4 of our total? Well, yeah, because we're thinking about one whole, and we're only going to take a piece out of a piece. And you can nicely see in our visual that we're only taking a half out of the half, which, if you look, is 1/4 of the whole. So that kind of makes the answer reasonable. So you can use the same visual idea for whatever you're trying to figure out the area for. So what if you need to find the area of 1/2 by 1/3 of a unit square? So again, we're going to take our unit square, our total, our box, our square is our total, our 1. And this time we want to find 1/2 by 1/3. So now I've split my unit square into half-size pieces on one side horizontally and third-size pieces vertically. And I just want 1/2 by 1/3. And that blue piece is showing us what 1/2 by 1/3 would look like. And so then we want to figure out the area of that amount. So 1/2 times 1/3. If we look at it, it's going to be 1/6. That blue square is one piece shaded out of the 6 pieces we made in our total. So is that answer logical? Yes. Again, we're taking our one whole and we broke it up into half-size pieces and third-size pieces, and we just want one piece out of that half and out of that third. So it is going to be a much smaller piece than what we've started with. All right, so how do we kind of sum all of this up to kind of wrap our heads around how we would multiply fractions in using our area model? How does that all going to work? Well, bear with me. I know there's a lot of steps, but once you start doing them, it becomes pretty natural. So we're going to draw our unit square because we need to figure out what a piece of our total is. So we take our first piece, our first fraction, and we divide our square horizontally into however many pieces you needed. So in our examples, we divided them into half-size pieces because that was our denominator. We shade in how much we need of that first fraction. So in our case, we only needed 1/2, so we only shaded in one piece. Then you do the same thing vertically for our other number. So in that last example, it was 1/3. So vertically, we split our unit square into 3 pieces. and then we shaded in one piece, 1/3 of that. In our examples, we're going to shade the whole third and the whole half. So you're going to be looking at how many pieces are double shaded to give you that final answer. I find that that's a little bit easier than just looking at it and finding the one piece. I think shading your whole half and your whole third makes it a little easier to find where the 1/6 comes from. And we'll kind of go over steps 6 and 7 in some of our examples. So let's look ahead here. So here are our steps. I put them on the side there. And here is our example on the right. 1/3 times 1/4. So my first step, draw my unit square. There we go. Here's my unit. That is one whole. I now need to figure out what 1/3 would look like and then what 1/4 looks like. So I'm going to find 1/3. So I'm dividing my square horizontally into however many parts I need for my denominator. In this case, it's 3 because I'm working with thirds. I'm shading the part that matches my first fraction. So I only need 1/3. So I'm just going to shade in one out of the 3 pieces. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the second fraction. So I'm going to take the unit square and I'm going to divide it into fourths because that was my fraction. And I'm going to shade in 1/4 because that's all it asks for. And I shade that in vertically. At this point, you'll see that I have some shaded purple and some shaded green. I have 1/3 shaded green and 1/4 shaded purple. And I know it's hard to see on this picture, but there is one box that has been colored both green and purple. And I apologize that you can't really see the green. When you're doing yours, you'll be able to see the two colors kind of crisscross, whether you're using a pencil and a pen, or 2 colored pencils, or 1 colored pencil and a regular pencil, or a pen and a pencil. You'll be able to see that there was one box shaded. And there's one box shaded, and now I have to count how many pieces did I end up making in my whole unit square. And when I'm looking at that, I have made a total of 12 pieces. So at the top in yellow there, you can see that's my answer. One piece was shaded, my numerator, your part. One piece was shaded twice, shaded purple and green in my example, out of the 12 pieces that I made in my entire unit square. So 1/3 times 1/4 gets me to a total of 1/12. So again, I know there's a lot of steps and it seems very overwhelming, but when you start to kind of work your way through the steps, it's not too bad. So let's look at one more. We have 3/4 times 2/5. So I kind of jumped ahead here and I did step 1 and step 2 already, where we have our unit square and I've split it into fourths because my first fraction is 3/4. My denominator tells me how many pieces to split vertically. And then I want to shade in 3 of those pieces because this time I have 3/4. And now I want to do the same thing. Step 4 is to kind of look at my second fraction and figure out how many pieces to divide it into. And in this case, it is fifths. So I'm going to divide that into fifths. And then I'm going to shade in 2 out of those fifths. So 2 vertical strips because each one is a fifth. Again, I know it's hard to see, but there are a few that are shaded both green and purple. And how many were shaded green and purple is going to give me my answer for my numerator. So I'm going to get 6. And 6 are double shaded out of how many did I make in my total area box? So how many are there all together? There are 20 pieces. It's a 4x5 array. So I end up with 6 pieces that are double shaded out of the 20 that I made all together. So 3/4 times 2/5 equals 6/20. I know that's kind of a lot to think about. I have a couple of examples for you to try. So if you're feeling comfortable, please go ahead and try the last couple of examples on the Nearpod and answer the poll question at the end so that we have a good idea of where you're at, how you're feeling, and what support we can give you. Okay? So thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon.